Hey, and welcome to Bible Talks, where we open the Word to hear God speak. Welcome back as we continue the narrative in the book of Esther. I find it fascinating. I find it intriguing. There's so many beautiful topics and themes and aspects of each of the characters' lives that I wish we could sit together and read slowly. But this is as good as it gets. So I'm going to have to beg your attention and your aggressive focus on the story. Whether you're sitting alone or you're with a group, we need to be able to really focus in and imagine that we are sitting together with our Bibles open and looking through the text. Funny that they named this Esther. I would call it Mordecai, because the whole book is really about Mordecai and how the Lord elevated him even in the worst of situations. But then Esther is a person who was used powerfully at that time for whom and with whom Mordecai interacted. I trust that you've been reading the text, you've been reading the narrative. I trust that the story is becoming familiar to you, the characters, the people, the situations. All that said, let's dive into chapter 5. And I have 2 more left today, and then the next time we meet. And I'm going to have to divide between chapter 5 all the way to chapter 10 and work through those 5 chapters into about, let's say, two times. The reason for that is because it's a narrative and there's a lot of details, and I really wish that you would take up the details on your own and kind of read through it and make sure that you're not missing out on some of the things that I don't have the time to elaborate on in our short time together. So my little exposition here, coupled with your studious look at the text and the story and discussion and the cumulative learning of all of you sitting around in a circle, is going to bring about some amazing lessons, thoughts, and learnings from this beautiful book of Esther. Back in the book, we're in chapter 5, and we're going to read together bit by bit and just work through that. You remember the story, you remember all that's happened, and everybody is fearful, everybody is scared. Edict has gone out to every province. The Jews are to be annihilated. There's this mass genocide that's going to take place on a particular day. Keep that in mind. On a particular day, there's a mass genocide that's going to... But by the time, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, but by the time we end the book, that day that was meant to be the demise of the entire Jewish nation there in that land under that king is going to turn into a feast, is going to turn into a joyful feast, a day of celebration, even to this day, the Feast of Purim, the Feast of Purim. Chapter 5, verse 1. And on the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes. What's she getting ready for? She's getting ready to go see the king. Does this happen normally? Oh, no, sir. This does not happen normally. You have to put your life on the line to be able to pull this off. And she said, if I perish, I perish. I'm doing this anyway. She put on her best robe yet, and her royal robes and her makeup and everything that was necessary. And she made her way to the inner court of the king's palace in front of the king's quarters, while the king was sitting on his royal throne inside the throne room opposite the entrance to the palace. And verse 2, when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won favor in his sight. And he held out the scepter to her that was in his hand. That means you're allowed in, walk-in interview, no appointment. I'm okay with this. In fact, you know what? I'd like to see you. And you get to see the king. The opposite of that would be off with his or her head. How dare she walk into my presence? How dare she demand my attention, demand my audience, an audience with me without me calling her? That was the rule, that was the law, and that's how things worked in that day. Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. And the king said to her, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given to you, even up to half the kingdom." That's pretty generous, if I should say so myself. And Esther said, If it please the king, let the king and Haman, everybody knows Haman, he's the man of the hour. He's been the teacher's pet so far. He's been the king's favorite. He's been elevated above everybody else. He's now second in command in the kingdom to the king himself. He owns more. He enjoys more freedom, more authority than anybody else in the kingdom. His word is pretty much law because he has the signet ring of the king. He is at the peak of his political career. Haman, I'd like you and Haman to come today to a feast that I have prepared for the king. Then the king said, bring Haman quickly so that we may do as Esther has asked. So the king and Haman came to the feast that Esther had prepared. And as they were drinking wine after the feast, the king said to Esther, so you came in for something. What is your wish? I'm going to grant it to you. Up to half my kingdom. I don't know which half this was. It was probably the half that he didn't like anyway. But he says, what is your wish? Up to half my kingdom, it shall be fulfilled. Then Esther answered, my wish and my request is this. And she drags it a little longer. And she just plays it out a little bit more. My wish and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king, and the king is like, yeah. Well, what is it? And if it please the king to grant my wish and fulfill me, what is it? Let the king and Haman come to the feast that I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king has said. Okay, so now we got the second banquet. And Haman has come to the first banquet. Haman's invited to the second banquet. Haman is just absolutely thrilled to the back teeth that he's part of this incredible king and queen banquet thing back and forth. And he's just living it up, so to speak. Verse 9. And Haman went out that day joyful, glad of heart. He was having a great day. Things were fine. Have you ever had that? Everything's going great. And then you see something, you see a trigger, you see something that just is the absolute trigger for you. And it has the ability to ruin absolutely everything that's going well. I mean, everything could be going great and this one thing has to happen or this one person has to show up and it's all down the drain. Well, that's what happened to good old Haman. When Haman saw Mordecai, when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he neither rose nor trembled before him, he was filled with wrath against Mordecai. This is an old story. This is an old hatred. This is an old wound. Nevertheless, Haman, let's give it to him. Pat him on the back. Haman restrained himself and went home, and he sent and brought his friends and his wife Zeresh. Haman recounted to them the splendor of his riches. He started to focus on the positive here. Let's forget Mordecai for a moment. Let's focus on the positive. Look at what's going on. I mean, look at how much I've got in my bank. Look at the number of sons I've got. I got 10 sons. Let's talk about my sons. My 10 sons, they fill me with pride. Look at all the promotions with which the king has honored me and how he advanced me above all the officials and servants of the king. And then Haman said, even Queen Esther, let no one but me come with the king to the feast she prepared. How about that? And tomorrow also I am invited by her together with the king. Not one feast, 2 feasts. Yet, let me be honest. All of this is worth nothing to me. Really? Really, Mordecai? Really, Haman? All of this is nothing to you as long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. As long as that guy exists, as long as that guy is within my sight, as long as he's at the king's gate, which means he's of some influence, none of this is worth it. That guy has to go. His wife pipes in, and his friend said to him, why don't you do this? Why don't you let a gallows 50 cubits high be made? Ask the king to go and hang Mordecai on it. And what do you ask the king's going to do? And then that's the end of your problems. Your problem's going to go away. Tomorrow you can enjoy the rest of your life. You can enjoy all the things that the king has given. Once Mordecai is out of the way, you will be fine. Once that one problem is out of your life, the rest of your life will be great. Once this one problem, one thing is out of your life, you will be a happy person. Well, that's what we think. And Zeresh says, do that, have him hanged, and then go to the feast. Enjoy the feast that Queen Esther is going to throw for you. Of course, the idea pleased Haman. Of course it did. And he had the gallows made. So he ordered it on Amazon. It came. He assembled it. There it was, up. Let's move to chapter 6. On that night, the king could not sleep. I think the king already had a little bit of sleep problems. He had issues of his own, and he had trust issues. He had, firstly, he wanted to keep giving half of his kingdom away. I don't know why. But here's a king in his chambers with all the security, with all the pomp, with all the pleasures, with all the plush pillows and satin sheets and the comfort of a palace. All of that didn't give this guy good sleep. And he gave orders to bring the book of the memorable deeds, the chronicles. And they were read before the king. How amazingly God works. How brilliantly the Lord aligns events and reminders and even uses our Google calendars or uses our notes or things that we just left around. He uses random programs and situations and people coming by or programs we watch on TV, and randomly at that very time it happens and it clicks and you remember. God's working behind the scenes. God's in control of every detail. He's the one who scripts our lives. He's the one who's behind this incredible embroidery. This incredible embroidery that hasn't been turned around for us so that we can see the beautiful picture. We see the threads and the confusion behind the embroidery. We see the colors and we don't see a sense, we don't see a pattern to it. But God's working behind the scenes. What am I talking about? And while these guys came in, they were reading the chronicles, the stuff that had happened, news that had gone by. It was found, verse 2, written how Mordecai had told Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, who guarded the threshold, who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. Remember that plot against the king? That came up. Funny thing, that came up. Just in that moment when the king's not feeling sleepy enough or feeling disturbed, that came up. And the king said to him, I wonder what's disturbing me. I mean, could it be that I haven't honored this? I haven't honored this guy. I haven't done what's due. So it was found written how Mordecai had told and uncovered this plot. And the king said, what honor or distinction has been bestowed on Mordecai for this? And the king's young men, remember that little council of fellows he's got on the side? The king's young men who attended him said, nothing has been done for him. Well, and the king said, who is in the court? Of course, Haman had to be hanging around nearby because that's where he wants to be eventually. And Haman just entered the outer king's court. Funny, how about coincidence? And the king asked to speak to Haman. And Haman comes in and the king says, hey, what would you do? What would you do if you really, you were really grateful to some guy in your kingdom and you wanted to honor him and you just wanted to really elevate the guy? Haman's ego told him that the king was probably talking about him, Haman, himself, self. So he really embellished. He painted a beautiful picture. He described the most luxurious, honorable homage that somebody could ever give to a man he wants to honor. Haman came in, and the king said to him, "What should be done to the man whom the king delights to honor?" Look at what Haman says. I mean, look at the words. Haman said to the king, "For the man whom the king delights to honor, let royal robes be brought, and let the king, which the king himself has worn, and the horse that the king has ridden," it's getting very close to being the king itself, and on whose head the royal crown is set, all right? Short of making him king, give him everything the king has. Let them dress the man whom the king delights to honor, and let them lead him on the horse through the square of the city, proclaiming before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." Then everything turns around and the king says to Haman, "Hurry, great idea, man, great idea, good. I love this. I really like your plan. Hurry, take the robes, take the horse, take everything you said, and go and do this for Mordecai, the Jew who sits where? At the king's gate." All three elements that absolutely ruined this guy's day. And he absolutely lost it. He lost it. Everything he wanted to bless himself with was given to his enemy. What could he do? So Haman took the robes and the horse and dressed Mordecai and led him through the square of the city, proclaiming before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights in." I cannot imagine what spirit he managed to do all of that and what would have gone through his mind, but hatred would have welled within him, and he is plotting to destroy Mordecai while Mordecai doesn't have a clue what is happening. That's typically us, isn't it? We don't know why we're blessed. When God blesses us, we don't know why we're being blessed. When God seems like he's far from us, we don't know why he's far from us. Sometimes we feel abandoned. We feel far as God is far from us. We feel like we're forgotten. We're left to our ways, left to the chance and the wickedness and the hatred of the people around us. Sometimes we feel like that. And sometimes we find ourselves on a white horse, the king's horse, with the king's crown. And God is saying, I'm not promising either to you. I'm just saying that both are possible. And I'm just saying, don't get comfortable with either. Suffering will come your way. Don't get too comfortable. That's not going to last. Pleasure and honor and fame will come your way. Don't get too comfortable. That's not going to last. But remember this one thing. God gives and God takes away. God gives and God takes away. But nobody can smear the name of God. Nobody can bring shame to the people of God, to the name of God, to the things of God. That God will not stand. You know, go back to another story, another amazing character called David. Dawood. He got that. He may have been 17, 18, 21, decide what you will. But he got that. He got the Father's heart. He got God's heart. He figured out that God doesn't grant wishes. God grants favor on what furthers his will, what furthers his agenda, what furthers his purposes. When his name is dishonored, God will destroy you. And when his name is honored, God will bless you. So David didn't go about saying, Goliath is the problem. David went about saying, God's name can't be messed with. And that day was a victory not over Goliath. That day was an establishment of the name of God. You come against me with sticks and stones, but I come against you in the name of the God of the armies of Israel. That's something that David got, we need to get in our prayer life. Thus it shall be to a man who delights in the king's honor. And the king said to Haman, hurry, take the robes, take the horse, do for Mordecai. Haman did what he had to do. Mordecai returned to the king's gate. Man hurried to his house, mourning, his head covered. He's absolutely falling apart. His wife Zeresh and all his friends, everything that had happened to him, he told them. Then his wise men and his wife said to him, if Mordecai before whom you have begun to fall is of the Jewish people, dude, you're done. You're done. This is over. You have been cancelled. You will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him. Lovely, encouraging words from your closest people, isn't that? While they were still talking, while this little pity party was happening, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried to bring Haman to the feast that Esther had prepared. Let's get back to the second feast in our time next time. And I'm going to take you all the way to chapter 10 in that. And we're going to see how this entire thing unfolds. But today I want you to stop and ask yourselves this one thing. Do you understand what honors God? Do you understand that? Don't think of what can I do that honors God. Nothing you and I do honors God. Only what God does honors God. God's work is God's work. I don't do God's work. God's name is God's name. I don't give him a name. I don't bring glory to his name. I do nothing. What honors God? What brings glory to God? What brings pain and dishonor to God? What is God willing to fight for? What is God willing to destroy over? Because our God is a blessing God. He blesses, and our God is a destroying God. He destroys. He's a God who is capable of making heaven and hell. He's a God who can love to death, and he can destroy to death. Let's not live in the Jesus on the picture and the wall faith. Let's come to terms with the fact that our God is a holy God. And when you honor him, you're honored. When you dishonor him, you're destroyed. It's as simple as that. So discuss this. Discuss in an Old Testament God. Discuss what's missing in the faith of the New Testament believer. Discuss where have we missed the weight of the glory of God. Also, discuss prayer and how we approach God in prayer. Do we approach God with the understanding that God writes the script and he is in the details and he is pulling all things together and nothing is beyond his control to bring about his will and good purpose? If he wants to elevate, if he wants to raise, if he wants to honor, whether it's Mordecai or you or me, he will do it. He will do it. So discuss that and talk about it. Come at it from an aggressive angle, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. Pull this thing apart. Don't get lazy. Just really ask, Lord, why am I studying Esther? What's in it for me? And what do you want to teach me about yourself as I gaze into the Old Testament God who's behind the scenes in this book of Esther? The Lord bless you. If you like this, then make sure that you say thank you to God by supporting the ministry. The QR code is on your screen. And let everyone you know who loves the word know about this so that we could get the word out. God bless.